Hey everyone, this is Gabby, and today I want to show you how to fix and diagnose a leak out of your Benjamin Discovery. So the first thing you need to do is to pump up your Benjamin Discovery, and you got to pump it up all the way to 2,000 psi. So once you got it pumped up, the first thing you want to do is find yourself a spray bottle and fill it up with soapy water. And the first place you're going to check is this fill adapter. And go ahead and spray it down and see if it is making any bubbles. If it's leaking, then you'll see bubbles, forming. But right here, it is not leaking, so it is fine. This is actually the first leak I had on this gun, and I tried to fix it, couldn't. So I ended up buying a new fill adapter. But that thing comes apart and there's O-rings inside and you can try cleaning it. The next thing you can check is the gauge port. And again, just spray water and see if bubbles are forming. That gauge threads in with Teflon and there's an O-ring at the bottom. So make sure to have both those in before you test it. Right here I'm testing where the valve assembly is basically, but right where that screw is though is where the reservoir connects to the barrel and the breech where that screw is. But I'm kind of checking everywhere to see if bubbles are forming. I ended up checking a lot of things, but I could not see any bubbles. So the next best thing you can do is to spray everything down with soapy water and then fire the gun, and that'll show you if there's any leaks. And as you just saw, you saw a big puff of soapy water come out from that valve screw, that valve assembly screw. Now there are 3 of those screws, one on this side, one on the other side, and then one on the bottom underneath the trigger system. But as you just saw again, it is leaking from that side, and it's leaking from all 3 sides. And as you can see here, I am testing again, and again it shot out water. And that doesn't mean the screws are failing, but it means that the O-rings on the valve assembly have gone bad or are not sealing properly. But right here you can see the bubble test is actually working, and every time I spray it, that thing shoots out water. And here I am again doing the shooting test, but here's an example of what not to do to fix this problem. See, it's not the screws that are broken, it's the O-rings inside or something else. So if you think you can just kind of patch up those screws, that will not work. So don't even bother trying to fill up those screws. Those screws aren't the problem. And if you look, there are more holes that the air can leak out of. But here's the valve assembly, and here are the original O-rings, or the ones I put on. But as you can see, there's a tear right there, and that will definitely not make a seal, and thus cause your gun to leak. But to fix it, just replace these O-rings and put on some high vacuum grease to prevent it from leaking. Now that's what I did. In a few seconds you'll see the new O-rings covered in grease, and I put everything back together, but the gun still kept on leaking even with these new O-rings and grease. So I took it out again, and I decided to use less grease, but I put it back inside, and again still kept on leaking. These O-rings are actually crossbin O-rings, so they're pretty hard. You might want to try softer O-rings. That might help. But if you try everything and your gun is still leaking from those valve assembly screws, then you might have to get a whole new valve assembly, because that valve assembly actually comes apart and there are more springs and more O-rings inside. But I could not, for the life of me, get mine apart. So if you can't get apart your valve assembly, then again, replace those O-rings and lube them up. But if you can't get yours apart, or everything you do doesn't really work, then you might have to get a new valve assembly. And no, this logic applies to just about every part on your Benjamin Discovery. If you do all in your power to replace the fill adapter or the gauge port or even the gauge itself or the valve assembly, and you try everything, then your next best fix is just to get a brand new part. And in my case, I've done it twice on the fill adapter and on the gauge port, and I've got brand new ones, and that completely stopped the leaks from both of those places. But anyways, I hope this helped you out a little bit, and thanks for watching.